So today I started to wash a load of laundry, and it stopped halfway in between. The door lock, couldn't unlock it. I tried a couple different ways here, wet laundry in here, and then after a while started pressing different buttons trying to do anything. I got stuck in this door lock where it seems like it could not unlock it. Obviously I can't get the wet clothes out, so I was kind of stuck here. Tried to a couple different, and then I got the dreaded F6 E02, which usually means there's some logic issue, some control board, or some problem, and then it's kind of gotten stuck functionality here where I couldn't get it to do anything. So I had to kind of piece through this. Yep, not very happy here with this stuck. So the first thing I was kind of want to do, and I was kind of hoping that maybe it's just a filter issue and it's stuck. So I got out the shop vac because I also wanted to get the clothes out because that was a problem. I don't want wet clothes. And I just took the drain and then used the shop vac to suck out as much as I could. I was able to get, I think, pretty much all of it, because then I did a couple times, and after a while there was no more water ending up in the shop vac. And so it seemed like I was able to get most of it and kind of pull it out. And then I was able to actually, pushing the buttons a couple times, the door unlocked. So I think there was a sensor in there for water inside. So then I tried some debugging here where I was just pressing the button, and it seemed like at some point it would run here. You can kind of hear it, it's just got in the background a little bit. It would beep, it would click, you see the door would lock, and then I would hear some clicking inside, like there was control relays trying to start up the the pump or the motor or anything like that, and none of that was working, or none of that was actually functioning, which then made me believe that since this was an error code about it couldn't control or talk to the control unit, that's the motor control unit, that's what that CCU is, that it really was the control unit, because everything else seemed to work correctly, turning the dial, the numbering, the timing would actually go down. That's why I was hoping that it was actually that control unit, that it could not communicate with it. So I started just taking it apart. So it's actually pretty easy. There's two in the back screws that are hex screws. Once you get those off, the lid comes up and it just slides forward. It's pretty easy. Again, those screws are just like metal screws, so they're easy to get out. Just the thing's very heavy, so it's hard to, or almost impossible to move. So I got those out and slid that forward. You have to take the little tray out because there's a couple screws inside of that's holding that top, the control unit, or the kind of user interface there. I couldn't find my hex screwdriver, so I just had to use the on the drill here, the impact driver. But there's two there. Get those out. There's two more at the top here. These two more metal screws. That's what is the final pieces that hold it in on the top. So again, these are all pretty easy, and they're all the same size except for those two torque screws that were inside the tray. So again, you get these off, and then that releases the front. There's some little clips, you kind of push them in, and that's what releases the top here. And then just be careful because there's a wire on the back. You'll see I'll just flip it over here. It runs through a couple clips. Those are pretty easy, and there's some tape that's holding it down, but you can see it runs all the way across there to the end. So you have enough slack, but just don't go yanking it as soon as you get off. And there's one interface right there that you just pull that off, and then that's what's the final piece, and then that's what releases it here from the rest. And then at the bottom there's four screws. I won't show you everything here. Some of them are a little hard to get to, but it's not too bad. So what you're trying to get off is that whole front end, or the final piece, because you're trying to get into where the drum is, and then that's where you get access to the control board and anything else if you had any other issues going on. And then there's three on the top. Sorry for the focus here. There's little tabs that kind of hold it so it's not going to drop, but I would just be careful right next to where the screws are. So you get all three of those off. I was just being careful here because I didn't want it to fall. So again, you just get that last piece off, and you'll see it sitting on some tabs, just trying to hold it, and then that's you can pull it down, and that's what goes off. And just be careful, again, there's three cables on the side here. My first one actually popped off, it was loose, but I got that one off, that one with the pink, and then the two other pieces, again, you go that. I had to shoot this a little out of sequence here. There's actually this this rubber piece that holds on, so you have to take that off first. But it was hard to kind of see, so I just reordered it a little bit here. But you see there's a little metal clamp that essentially goes around in that groove, and that's what holds that rubber piece to the outside of the drum, or not the actual drum, but there's a lip right there. So you take that off, and it makes it a little easier to get it out. And then here's the control. I'm just kind of showing you a little bit. There's a little tab because it's hard to see in there, but that little tab holds it in place. So you get a screwdriver, get it underneath there, and then that'll slide out. And then there's 3 cables that'll unplug in there. Again, it's kind of hard to see, so I'm kind of showing you different ones here. And then you just slide it out of those little brackets. You can see them in the metal piece here. And then this is why. So I pulled mine out, and you can kind of see here's where they plug in, just to give you a better view. And I was kind of looking, and I saw a burnt mark. This is kind of a sign. I'm not an electrical engineer, but I can see burn marks are generally not good for electronics. This is one of the integrated circuits. It had chipped off or overheated and cracked off right here. So obvious, a lot of signs that this was the problem. That's the overheating. And then I don't know if these are diodes or fuses or something. One of them was cracked and gone. So this really led me to believe that was the problem. So I started cleaning off because I had to wait overnight and go find a place. So I found a local place that sold that control unit. Like I said, everything else was working, and then seeing those electronic burns and everything. So I figured I was going to take a chance that this really was the issue. So I spent a lot of time here with some vinegar and water and just cleaning this off. It was a mess. So again, just spend some time doing that. There's a little filter on the bottom here. I didn't record it here, but when I pulled it out, there were some like keys and like clips and just a bunch of junk in there. So I used the vinegar and water, and same thing, just kind of cleared all of this out. You can actually get your finger in a little bit, and there's an impeller on the left. You can make sure your pump's working. Again, electricity should be off on all of this. You don't want to mess around with any portion of this where it's running. So that's the pump right there. And then once I bought the unit, it was like $250, but I really wanted to, it was cheaper than buying a new one for $1,000. So I just reversed the order here. There's, again, the 3 little wiring harnesses that go in there. It was kind of hard to had to move it around in there to get them there. They were of different length, a different type of slack. It's not a very good way to shoot this, but it's pretty obvious. There's 3, and they can't go into each other's wire harnesses, so that there's only one way they can go in. And once you get it in there, close that little door, same thing, put it back into those little grooves, and then it just slides back, and then that locks it in place. And then you can see that clip on the top. That's where the pump hose goes out, the drain, and that just clips into the top. And that's really it. It's really an easy fix. So then after trying a couple different ways, I actually ended up putting it back on the drum and taking it off the door because that seemed like the easiest way to get the harness attached. And just like you do in the reverse order here, again, just need to plug in those 3 wiring harnesses. Again, I'm just showing this a little out of sequence just because it's hard to see. There's not a lot of room in there, but you just got to work this with the seal and the wiring. It was just too hard to try to get the clip, so what I ended up doing was actually attaching it back. I'll show you here how I got off the door. This was a better way to view it, but so I ended up attaching this back to the drum because it was really difficult with the wiring harness, just trying to get in under there. You can get to it from the top a little bit, but I found it was sort of easier. You'll see some struggles here, but I was able to attach that and then work on the door piece here and then just reattach it there. And I'll show you a minute here how I got it off the door, but just got this piece in place. Hung it back up, you're just reversing the order. Again, there's 3 on the top, 4 on the bottom, and here's what it looks like on the inside. This is how I got. It looks similar. There's a little groove in there, and then there's a wire or metal, or it's a stiff wire that goes around, and then it has a a spring on it, and that's what really holds in place. So I just had to reverse the order here. Here's what it looks like, just with a spring on it. So it just sits in that groove, and so that's how I got this off the door. You can see it's really not difficult, but this doesn't, that spring doesn't detach. So I'll save you the 10 or 15 minutes I spent here, just but you can do it for the humor purposes here. I was trying to get this back on, and it's one of those things where you feel like you need, just one more hand here to kind of help out. I was having trouble just because every time I pulled it, it sits, there's a little groove, but when you pull it a little bit, it doesn't hold enough, and it just kind of pulled out. So this is my solution after getting trying multiple ways, was to give myself essentially another hand here. I had a clamp, and I used that to hold the top in place just so it would have one piece, and then went ahead and put a second one in here just to hold the bottom. It's not actually holding the spring, but it's holding it so it can't pop off that little groove. So after getting it just in, I got it and it just popped out, but I knew it felt like I was making some progress. So tried it again. This time I got it to go in place. And I was so happy after, I wasn't sure when I was going to be able to get this back on. Yep, give myself a thumbs up here. So I was able, then I just double checked it to make sure the seal was correct, because like I said, there's a little metal groove, but you just want to make sure it's going in there. And then again, reversing the order, just put the unit back on the top here. Screw it back in. There's one wire. There's only one wire harness here, and then put the clip back in, and then plugged it back in. And this is in real time. Give you some sounds here. I just want to see if I actually failed or not. But I pressed it, and it gave me some beeps. So at least I had hooked up the wire correctly. It seemed like most was correct. I decided to do the water, or the cleaner, and then I did it in real time here. Just going to see if I failed. Beeped. I was watching. I just was silent for a little bit here. Then I hear the door click. I was like, all right, so far so good. And then, I was just watching it, and then I saw the drum actually move, so I was very excited. I was like, oh my gosh, I think this actually worked here. But I wanted to, I forgot I disconnected the water, or turned it off. Once I turned it on, the water started pouring in. So it seemed so far like everything was good. This was actually working. I wasn't getting any errors. The water started coming in. Yep, thumbs up. I think I was a little excited this time. And then let it run for a while here. And there was soap coming in. It was drumming. The drum was spinning. There was no water leaking out. So it seems like it really was just that motor control unit, which I had read, and it seemed like that's what most of the time, what fails. And I think this thing was like 14 years old. So saved a little bit of money, and live for another couple years hopefully.